Hello, my internet scholars, and welcome back to the greatest show that I haven't named yet. Let's be real here, you'd much rather be watching Justin Wang. I know he does a good job. God, look at that mustache. Anyway, today, guys, what does a gay rat wedding and a forum online have in common? Well, it turns out a lot more than you might think. Now, while it would be really easy to sit here and talk about what happened in the news recently, or not so recently, with Mr. Ratburn getting married and some old fuddy-duddies in a flyover state getting annoyed about it, I'm not gonna do that today because I'd much rather educate you guys on something very, very hyper-specific. But it turns out, while those people might dislike Mr. Ratburn and his imaginary wedding because, you know, Mr. Ratburn isn't a real person. What the hell? Today we're gonna look at a forum dedicated to the show Arthur. And this forum is called the Slums of Elwood. So this is kind of like a introduction to a kind of subsection of communities that are all kind of around the same thing. You know, the kind of communities where people gravitate towards a show and they develop, you know, a community around it. You can look at My Little Pony or any of the other shows like Steven Universe or whatever that have a community that is very hyper dedicated and constantly talks about the show. Yeah, this is like that, but for Arthur. And it turns out there's more than 2 adults that are just that interested in the show, which I did not know. And I guess, yeah, for those of you not caught up on what Arthur is a PBS show that's really about teaching morals and life lessons and, you know, kind of helping people understand life and all of that. You know, it's for kids. That's part of why Mr. Ratburn's wedding was so important for that show in the context and what the show does. That's fairly important, and it kind of means a lot in that regard. But what is this community? Why is it called the Slums of Elwood? Like, what is going on here? Now, there, first off, is a subsection of online communities dedicated to something called Grimdark. Grimdark being things like Warhammer 40k, let's see, anything where people die a lot and it's really sad. I do think Warhammer 40k is the best example of Grimdark that you'll ever find. That's Grimdark sci-fi, but you get Grimdark in pretty much any community. If you see a character from a show drawn by someone with blood, or they're dying, or their throat's cut, yeah, that's a Grimdark drawing, and usually it's related to a Grimdark subsection of a community. Now, that's part of what the Slums of Elwood is, but according to the people on the forum, it's more of a ongoing gag that they're putting up for everybody else. So there was no particular section of the forum that said this is what this is about and how we're gonna operate. It was more of like kind of a spontaneous thing. But I did actually find a post where somebody was asking about what this community is. And it also explains how I found out about this community too. Because the community is really small, actually. First off, there's about 304 registered users on their forum, which is incredibly small, and the fact that they're still posting today is pretty amazing. It actually shows a lot of dedication, but it's not really active. It's very quiet. Anyway, there was a Some Ordinary Gamers video, and one of the people hopped on into the forum to ask, I don't really know what this is about. I saw you guys in this video, and I'm curious to know what it really is and what this all means. The first is from a forum user who says the following: I use it for 2 reasons. 1, talking about the show. 2, I'm very conservative and most of the users here are liberal. Thus, sometimes I lurk on political discussions to see what most liberals are feeling and get their side. And you know, people say that understanding your common man has gone away with the invention of Twitter. But as far as I'm concerned, while Twitter tears us apart, it's very clear that Arthur brings us together. I'm being sarcastic there, but like the amount of civil discussion that goes on this forum is actually pretty amazing. I'm actually really impressed by that, considering how like political discussion immediately devolves into name calling these days. So that's pretty amazing. Anyway, the site's administrator, known as A Lot of Moms, was happy enough to really lay out what the forum is about, which does a great job for me, especially since this is kind of like just an introduction to communities like this. Greetings, the Beast Steve. Coincidence is my name in Minecraft. And welcome to the slums. No worries, no offense taken whatsoever over the YouTube coverage. I actually get a kick out of the typical outsider brick to the face reactions to our wonderful batshit insane community. which leads to the very answers you're looking for, namely, what this forum is all about and why it came into being. The Slums of Elwood was founded several years ago as a place for Arthur parody, out-of-context humor, and general satire surrounding the series. Our intention was to create a rule-light community for which slightly older portion of the fan base where we could joke around freely, which there was a clear need for given the increasing popularity of the whole Arthur ghetto meme, Arthur out of context trend. It's worth noting that even the franchise founder, Mark Brown, has gone on record as finding some of it hilarious. And we actually had a production crew member swing by a while back and drop a few like-minded jokes. Of course, most of us here do have a genuine appreciation for the show, its memorable characters, and many timeless lessons. So, while much of what you find at the Slums is akin to an ongoing robot kitchen sketch, there is something related to a kitchen that is very popular on this forum. We'll get to that. A robot chicken sketch. There's also a lot of analytical episode discussion at the same time. Precisely for that reason, I find it nearly impossible to take myself or much of anything we post here seriously. So naturally, I just can't be anything other than amused when folks stumble upon things like the infamous roasted rabbit roleplay and respond with shock and hilarity. At least from my angle, and that most regulars, our contributions are basically a variety show. God damn it. Oh my god, I should just delete my account. Of course, there may be a few members around here who are legitimately disturbed enough to be locked up. But hey, all the more to sit back and throw peanuts at, right? So again, I'm glad you found your way to our everlasting arms. Feel free to stay as long as you like. In fact, feel free to stay forever and ever and ever. You know, I genuinely do feel that getting this information out there onto the internet for people to look at one day when we actually study the internet and not, bitch on it, I really do find communities like this super interesting. Now, where it gets into like grimdark territory and like that Warhammer 40k level of sad and awfulness is with the roleplays on occasion. Now, I understand most of it's like a joke, but sometimes it's hard to discern genuine insanity versus humor. Now, I'm not gonna read this story because YouTube just likes to demonetize whole channels based off of the context of saying certain things now, apparently. So, unfortunately, I'm not gonna do that, but the story is there for you to read. I will give you a little plot synopsis, though, don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you hanging as I say that, as there is a skinned rabbit on my computer screen, hung upside down. So basically, what Roasted Rabbit is grimdark roleplay between the site's admin, a lot of moms, and what is this? Is this just one person talking? Jesus. Trying to explain this is very strange, but basically what it is that rabbit kid from Arthur? Yeah, he becomes Thanksgiving dinner. It's awful, it's dark, it's a little weird, but there's plenty of other communities that do the exact same thing, which is very interesting. I really don't know why people make grimdark material. I think some of them just like to be edgy. But hey, it's there nonetheless. But I figured it was important to catalog this for you all to see today, and here's the reason why. One is that these communities are super small and hyper-specific. Two, I've actually gone researching on other communities to only find out that their entire community has been wiped from the face of the internet, and it's incredibly hard to find information on them. So, with that information being lost to time, I feel we've lost kind of like this piece of the internet human experience. For example, there was a community of people called the Boytars, right? These are people who like to Photoshop men onto animals, and they're like, wow, that's hot. Stay with me. But their whole society has basically vanished from the internet, and it's impossible to find information on them outside of like a cracked article that says they existed or these people used to do this. And it's kind of a shame because it helps you understand why these people do a thing, and I think that's really important. And yeah, so I understand that Slums of Elwood is a kind of parody, kind of a dark, out of context humor, and also a place where the Arthur memes come from. But some of it's genuine, and not being able to see that would be kind of a shame and would be us losing a lot of humor. Anyway, I kind of use this as a little point to talk about Grimdark, and we'll be covering that more in the future because there are certain communities that are very into Grimdark and all that function of a community. So next time we will do a bit of a longer video looking at something like that. This really wasn't an in-depth look at the Slums of Elwood, but there are plenty of other shows or communities, so if you have suggestions, please do send them my way. And don't get me wrong, I've heard certain suggestions. I definitely know they're there, and they're definitely on the docket. There's some people who have asked me to do true crime. I'm going to save that for around Halloween. Let's see, there's a couple of others, and I think I'll announce this now. I'm pretty dedicated to doing it, but I am actually going to be doing a documentary. So this documentary is actually going to be on the Brony community. Larger communities I want to dedicate time towards and actually going on the ground and meeting the people and learning about the community from the horse's mouth, pun intended. The point of them is not really to gawk and stare at these people for doing something that's like different per se, but to kind of expand your idea of things that people experience. So right now I am actually looking to do that. But it does cost money, so do support the channel in whichever way you could. I am thinking about bringing the Patreon back only because of what's happening with the channels on YouTube right now, which I will be doing a video on as well. But yeah, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. I do some documentary-esque stuff on a channel, so maybe like commentary tracks based on what's left out and my opinions and little extra tidbits of content here or there. As well as like other things like pieces from the book that's coming out and all that stuff as well. But yeah, going forward, noticing all the stuff that's happening on YouTube, I will be focusing more on internet communities, and I want to put some time into doing this Brony video. So that'll be something that's happening. If you'd like to support the channel, there's like some new merch coming in like a couple days. I'll have a link that I'll post on Twitter with some images, and you can go pick up that stuff. It's gonna look fucking fire. I've seen some of the rough drafts. It looks great. Anyway, with that being said, guys, have a good day.